Welcome, everybody. Kelly DeLucia here with George Pottencoulomb, Welch Team Keller Williams. We are going to go through a abbreviated market summary today, and then just chat a little bit about the election and how that impacts real estate. So I'm going to quickly share my screen. Seems like everyone can hear us now, so fantastic. Mm-hmm. We are, well, that's not the screen I wanted. Maybe. It's been 2 weeks since I've done this. Lost my touch.
Actually, I think it's been like 3 weeks.
3 weeks? You're probably right. All right, so November 4th, if anybody else out there is tired from staying up watching election returns, I feel for you. I'm in the same boat. So this week, we have actually seen an uptick over the last several weeks on through October and beginning of November here, and inventory hitting the market, which, as you all know, has been our greatest struggle with trying to match buyers to homes with our super low inventory. And if you guys take a look here, you've got still more pending sales happening every week than new homes hitting the market. So the theme continues. If you're a seller, now is a great time to sell. If you're a buyer, you are still taking advantage of super, super low interest rates. And good news. I wanted to note something. If you guys look here too, see our numbers of homes that have sold have ticked up too, which can be a variety of things. Contracts that didn't fall apart or contracts that maybe finally closed, because we had a lot of issues with lenders just getting slammed with files and not being able to close out, and close dates being pushed and pushed and pushed. So it could be one of two things. We're starting to navigate that a little bit better. Everyone's getting into a little bit better of a workflow. And maybe some of those companies have been staffed up a little bit better to handle the onset of new contracts that have been coming in on a weekly basis, or that we are playing catch up. So one of the two. But I actually think that I've seen a little bit better just workflow. It seems that people are a little bit more responsive. That the lenders have really gotten through some of those harder times. George, do you have any insight on that?
I was going to say exactly that. I think it's a whole part of the workflow, the process, the individuals kind of getting into a rhythm of going through the files, getting the things that they needed. I think the urgency for buyers, I'm sure from the agent side as well, transaction coordinators, everybody involved has kind of really put together that sense of urgency for everybody to say, hey, we need to get certain documents in, we need to get the appraisals in time, inspections done in a timely fashion. So I think the process has just gotten quicker because we've been able to manage the workload a lot better now that we're been in it for a couple, actually more than a few months now. Yeah. So that's really helped with trying to get to that point of, okay, now we're kind of getting back into our timelines of, now we can probably close a contract in 30 to 45 days. 30 to 40 days when we were trying to push 45 to 60. So,
right. We really were seeing a lot slower turnaround time. Being more diligent as a buyer as well, getting all of your documentation in when the lenders are asking for it has really greatly helped out in that as well. So better communication probably can be attributed to a lot of this.
And I do think some of the parts of the buyers that were out there while they were searching, maybe not getting one or two or three offers, that got them a little bit further along in that process of saying, okay, hey, while we're working on a pre-approval way, let's get some docs in, let's get things going. So individual things have started to just move along quicker.
Yeah, very true. I'm trying to share right now here, just real quick to the page. Okay. Right, let's go back. So, overall, our trends are, very consistent. What we've been sharing week in and week out about inventory levels and about, interest rates, and all of that has remained true. And what really is going to be impacted, everyone sits here and talks about, we still don't know who's won. We might not know for a couple weeks. But, there's a lot of skepticism every year as you roll into an election. How does that impact the real estate industry? How does that impact the real estate industry in a coronavirus year? Obviously we don't have all the answers, but we can rely on, statistics and what has been proven to be true every election cycle. And so I think this chart is a really good just depiction of electoral election years versus non-presidential election years. So not mid-cycle elections, but just every 4 years. So, October, November, December, these are the months that we typically in our part of the, state of Florida see a little bit of a slowdown because the holidays are here and people stop, what they're doing because they're have bigger priorities. They're focusing on Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, whatever holiday you may celebrate. And they put their home shopping needs on the back burner. This year, it's been a little different because we've been contending with coronavirus, but we've also been contending with the election that occurred yesterday. And so you can see the difference between an election cycle year and a non-election cycle year, the impact of those sales. And there's a big spread, 5.2% change during those months of October to November. But what happens after that? So what happens after that is generally everything goes back to normal, right? And so here's a great quote, regarding what ultimately occurs when people slow down during those election times of uncertainty, that those sales just become deferred. They don't go away. They just get pushed off until a time period, perhaps 1 month later, or perhaps into the next year. So in our case, 2021, as people begin to gain more confidence in, what's happening with the economy, jobs, interest rates, and all of those things rolled into one, it ends up being a boom for the months that follow the presidential election. And that has held true regardless of who has won. You've heard us talk about it before, whether it's the incumbent, the challenger, a brand new party takes over, or, the same party stays in control. That has statistically been true forever. And, 2020 has been different, but we certainly don't anticipate that to change what we see here. And there's a couple of reasons why, and we'll go through that, as it impacts North Florida specifically. But, I think that, even this week, even last week, we've been really busy, right?
Great. I mean, and it doesn't, like you said, that's the key difference is that it's deferred. There's the uncertainty of the time leading up to it, and everybody is a little unsure as to what's going to happen the month following. But more than likely, with any change in president or non-change in president, things aren't an immediate effect. So people realize that things kind of stay the norm, or what they did not expect. There weren't going to be any major changes. And so they go right back into their home shopping process. So we expect that to happen right back in December and January and February. We will go back into our busy season as we normally do.
Agree. And I think this year especially is important. This year being 2020 going into 2021, we had such a inventory problem coupled with low interest rates, to help, our economy out during what has been the last 9 months of living in a coronavirus world, that, all of those typical things have just been compounded. And so that deferred sales are, there are people that are just watching and waiting to see what happens. And interestingly enough, we don't see any reason that real estate will slow down, that it won't remain strong. We'll go through some of those reasons next, but, demand, number one, people are still trying to move. There's still a lot of people that move, they have to buy and they have to sell regardless of what's happening in the country and the economy and a presidential election. There are always reasons that people need to buy and sell. That's number one. Part of the reason why demand is so strong is here too, is among millennials. So millennials right now have a lot of buying power, and they are looking at, where is my dollar going to be strongest and how can I start, building for the future. And We hear a lot about people not wanting to pay rent anymore and, making some sort of investment for their future. And Jacksonville has a market that is a growing millennial population. 2, why is demand so strong? Well, mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are ridiculously low, historically low. Was reading a statistic today that the anticipated rate will stay below or at 3% through the end of 2021. So another year of really low rates.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. And it's been like that for the better part of this year. It has been sitting in the mid 3s to obviously the mid 2s at this point, and will probably continue in that 3 range for the next year, which is just imagine the amount of demand. It's why when I talk to a lot of people when it comes to buying, they always say, okay, well, the demand's so high, the price of the values are high. Yes. But again, the biggest factor is that your interest rate is low.
Yep.
At 2.5%, if your interest rate goes up to 3.5% a year from now, your buying power significantly drops in comparison to what values have been. So you have to think in that realm of it instead of, the fact that you may potentially be buying it at the peak of the market. But we don't know that for sure. It may continue to rise through the following year as well, and then we not see a change till sometime next fall. But we don't know that.
Right. And we talk about especially in our market where the majority of our homes, the average home price is, under $300,000, or we're sitting right around $300,000 right now. And the amount of home and what you can get with that lower, you can afford $50,000 more on a home and keep your payments at or below where you anticipated them to be because interest rates are so low. And because there's such a huge difference in what you can buy at $250 versus say $300 in North Florida, you could be in a whole different part of town. You can be in a whole different size property or lifestyle type neighborhood. That affordability and buying power has really driven a lot of that demand. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much worrying about the price because the rates are so low that you can get into that house still. You can still afford to buy it, which is driving up that millennial demand too. I was actually trying to find my favorite graphic. You guys that have been watching our weekly updates, have seen this a couple times, but I can't find it right now. So we'll just move on. We'll make you guys wait. But the affordability piece truly is the biggest thing that you have to think about. Prices continuing to appreciate. So the real estate market is going to stay strong regardless of who is in the White House. As we see pricing appreciate in our market, we think there's going to be about 5 to 7% increase in home prices. So as home prices go up, and we just talked about it, what can you afford as those prices go up? Fortunately, with rates staying low, you can still afford to get into a property for a low mortgage payment. Especially for those people that are renting, especially if we go back to that millennial category. So you can see how they all kind of roll together to keep parts of our economy chugging along. Again, number 4. History. So we talked about history. Oh no, it went past. I think my internet connection is messing everything up too, but here we go. History. History shows us, just like we talked about before, that regardless of what the presidential outcome ends up being, that we are going to see the stronger real estate cycle happen the year post an election. So that means 2021, we're coming for you. And the real estate industry has come back with just reckless abandon throughout the pandemic, and we don't see a reason for it to slow down.
Yeah, 2017 was a very strong year for real estate, and then that continued over the following years. And then 2020 was just a completely different story because of COVID. But again, it was a strong market leading up to it. There was uncertainty for about 2 to 3 weeks, but after that, it just kind of blew up in a way, especially in our market. Again, every market's slightly different. We're talking about our specific North Florida market right now, but there's great examples throughout the country where that is the case for several markets. Jacksonville just happens to be in that top 5 to top 10 range right now, depending on what stats you're looking at. But that is a great aspect to consider, that it is going to continue in that direction, because it's not like a week from now or a couple of months from now we're going to be sitting with an influx of inventory, because builders are behind.
Right.
And that's where typically the new home options are going to come from. And they're looking at 8 to 10 months, where they were typically at about 6 to 7. So that's not going to change anytime soon. So we will continue to have a great market going into next year, and again for the foreseeable future, unless there was some sort of a dramatic economic change, which again, don't see that coming. It's hard to predict something like that.
Absolutely. We couldn't have predicted what happened in 2020. And, certainly, the real estate market has upheld a lot of the economy, even throughout what's gone on in 2020. So we look forward to another great 2021. And we think that we will see home sellers, enter the market and hopefully help out a little bit with our inventory. We'll see some people that have held off throughout 2020 for a variety of reasons, whether just the level of comfort that they had putting their home on the market, or, they were just uncertain about what was to come. But, we think there'll be some increasing inventory levels, and, with rates staying at 3% or lower, still a great opportunity for buyers. So, regardless of how everything shakes out in the upcoming days or weeks, we want everybody to feel confident about the North Florida real estate market. And if you have any specific questions that we can help you out with, certainly feel free to reach out to us. Always available. I didn't see any additional comments or questions, but if you have any, send them over to us and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. But for this week, I'm going to go take a nap. I'm extremely tired.
And then, it's middle of the day.
You what?
I said, I'm going to go to the gym.
Oh, there you go. It's probably not going to happen. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time.